Hello viewers, uh, welcome back. So today I've prepared a video on how the blood circulates towards our heart. All right. So as you know, our heart is four chambered. Okay. So there are like four chambers in our heart. The upper chambers are called atrium. The lower chambers are called what? Ventricles. All right. So if I label them, so this is our right atrium. This is our right atrium. Okay, let me give it a bluish mark. We'll get it white. So this is our right atrium, and this is our right ventricles. Okay, so what I'm trying is I'm just dividing the whole heart into four chambers, right? So and this becomes your left what? Atrium. This becomes your left ventricles. Okay, so all right, so this is your heart. So basically the upper chambers, as you can see, this is your chamber, this is your upper chamber, this one is also another upper chamber. All right, so these are your lower chambers. Okay, so now, so let me label them. So what is my right atrium? This is my right atrium in the heart. Okay, and this is my right ventricle basically. All right, so A is my right ventricle. So to be specific, this is my left what? Atrium. This is my left ventricle, right? Okay, so do you get my point? That's why I've divided the whole heart into four chambers. Okay, so before I begin with the blood circulation, you should have some knowledge that our heart, it gets filled with the blood from the atrium. So basically what happens, your upper chambers, the atrium, they get filled with the blood. Okay, and the difference is the right atrium, this is the right atrium, right? It gets filled with deoxygenated blood basically. Okay, so our atrium, right atrium, the right side of our heart, it gets the deoxygenated blood. Okay, so what I can write is it's deoxygenated blood. So what do you mean by deoxygenated blood? Because since this blood is coming from the body basically, so the body, it produces a lot of oxide, the carbon dioxide. So those the carbon dioxide diffuse into the blood and it gets carried into your heart. Okay, so our right atrium, it gets filled with what? Deoxygenated blood, and our left atrium, it gets filled with oxygenated blood. Got it? All right, so what happens is, so if I show you in the heart structure, so basically your deoxygenated blood, it gets in here into the right atrium. All right, and the oxygenated blood, it gets into your what? Left atrium. Okay, so let me label the names of this C. So this is your vena cava basically. Vena cava is the largest vein. Vena cava is the largest vein that brings the what? Deoxygenated blood from the body. Okay, and this F, it is basically the pulmonary vein. It brings the oxygenated blood from the lungs. Did you get my point? So your lungs, it oxygenates your blood and it sends the blood to your heart, and that blood, it enters into the heart. Okay, through pulmonary vein. All right, so what happens, our both the atrium, they are getting filled with the blood. At that time, you can see this is your valve, these are your valve. All right, so these valves are getting closed so that the atrium, they can get filled with the blood. All right, both the atrium, they get filled with the blood, and when the atrium are filled with blood, at that time we have atrial systole. Atrial systole means the atrium, they contract. All right, your atrium contracts. So because of the contraction, what happens, the valve opens up. Okay, your valve opens up, and as a result of that opening, the blood, it flows into the ventricles. So basically from your right atrium, the blood, now the blood goes into what? Into the right ventricle. All right, and similarly from the left atrium the blood goes into the left ventricle. You get my point? So your atrium are getting full. When they contract, the blood goes into the ventricles. Okay. So at the same time, the ventricles as well, they get filled. When they are filled, there is a similar process called ventricle what systole. So because of this ventricular systole, what happens? The ventricles they contract. You get my point? So basically your heart, the ventricles, they're getting filled with the blood, and when they're full, at that time they what? They contract. Because of the contraction, what happens? This blood from here, it goes through this channel. All right. So this is your oxygenated blood. So you got my point. Your heart, it contains oxygenated blood. So can you tell me where is this oxygenated blood going? It basically goes to your body, right? Why? Because our body needs oxygen, constant supply of oxygen, right? So it goes through this path, okay, through this this is an artery basically, and the name of this artery is aorta. You have heard about aorta. It's the largest artery in our body, right? So basically the aorta, it pumps the blood, oxygenated blood, to the body. All right, you get my point? Similarly, so this is how our body gets the oxygen from the it basically gets the supply of oxygen. All right, so we are done with the oxygenated supply, right? Now let's go for the deoxygenated supply. What happens to this deoxygenated blood? Basically these both processes, they take place simultaneously. Okay, so this blood, it goes to the body. Okay, now we have to know that what happens to this. Basically from the ventricles, as the ventricle what as the ventricle contracts, your deoxygenated blood goes to the lungs. Okay, so let me mark here, there is a lungs here on top. So basically there is lungs here. So what happens is, so your this deoxygenated blood goes to the lungs. As you know, why deoxygenated blood goes to the lungs? Because your lungs, it contains oxygen. So this blood that has a lot of carbon dioxide, okay, it goes into the lungs. Then it gives the carbon dioxide it contained to the lungs, and the in exchange, the lungs, what it will do, it will give the blood what? Oxygen, right? So that means your this blood that is deoxygenated, it gets oxygenated in the lungs. All right. So now, okay, so this is the basically the whole process. What you have to understand is your lungs, it gets the deoxygenated blood, it basically oxygenates that blood, right? So from the lungs, again for the next cycle, what happens? Your lungs gives the oxygenated blood to the heart again. So the same blood gets oxygenated in the lungs and again enters into the heart. Do you get my point? So this is for the second circulation. So in this manner, your heart, it pumps what? Oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, right? The exchange. So basically our heart, and that's why since the blood enters into the heart twice, you have heard about double circulation. Double circulation is when the blood enters the heart twice. See, first of all, it entered as deoxygenated, then it went to the lungs, it got oxygenated, then again it entered the heart, right? So because of that reason, our heart is like double circulatory system. You get my point? Okay. So yeah, that is basically the overview how the blood circulates towards the heart. Okay. Here what I've shown is the blue arrows. These are the deoxygenated blood, the path of the deoxygenated blood, and the red ones are the path of the oxygenated blood. Do you get my point? Okay. I'll add with this a little point. You can see here this part. This is the basically the muscles of the ventricles. See, this is my ventricle. Both the ventricles, as you can see, there is a what? Difference in the thickness of the muscle. You can see. So your left ventricle, basically the muscle is bit thicker than the right ventricle. You know the reason why? Because the reason is, if the muscle is thick, it can provide a lot of pressure. Because of that pressure, with a high pressure, your blood can come out of the heart and it can circulate towards the body. Through the whole body, the blood gets circulated. All right. On the contrary, if you contrary, you can say that the right ventricles, the muscles are thin. You know why? Because from the right ventricle, the blood goes to the lungs, and the heart and the lungs, they are nearby. So you don't need much pressure. All right. So these are some basic things. In my next videos related to heart, I'll be discussing the various adaptations of our heart. All right. So today's video was only for the circulation, how the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood circulates towards the heart. Okay. So if you like this video, please share and do subscribe and stay tuned with Lighthouse Academy. All right. Thank you. Bye.